What happens when the man who built the company from scratch walks into one of his own kitchens and no one knows who he is? Graham Ackley stood outside the back door of his 8th restaurant, dressed in a faded black tee, frayed khakis, and steel-toed shoes. A thick beard covered the bottom half of his face, and tinted safety glasses hid his sharp blue eyes. No one would ever guess he was the CEO. 8 years ago, Graham sold his beat-up pickup to rent a kitchen and start his first roadside grill. Now, he had 8 locations across the state. Profitable, popular, but lately something had been off. Customer reviews at this location were dropping. He'd gotten vague reports, slow service, cold food, and some complaints from staff. But when he asked the district manager, all he got was, "We're a little short-handed, that's all." Nothing major. Graham didn't buy it. He'd never met most of the team here. It was his newest location, and with expansion, his time had been spread thin. That's why no one would recognize him. And that's exactly what he needed. He pushed open the door. Inside, the kitchen was already chaos. "You the new trainee," a voice called out. A woman in her late 20s with sweat on her brow and a headset around her neck waved him forward. "Yeah, Gabe," he said, using the name HR had helped him set up. "First day, Kara Thompson," she replied quickly. "Shift lead, grab an apron." "You're on prep." He moved fast, slicing onions and stocking fries, keeping quiet and watching. Kara barked orders while flipping burgers, taking drive-through orders and checking tickets. She didn't stop moving. Neither did anyone else. "Where's the manager?" Graham asked casually over the buzz of the fryer. "Office," one of the teen cashiers muttered. "She never comes out." Graham glanced at the clock. It was almost 3. No one had taken a break, not even to get water. He leaned back for a second, pretending to stretch. That's when he saw the cook, mid-40s, heavier build, drenched in sweat, wobble slightly as he carried a tray of fresh patties to the grill. The guy's hands started shaking. "Careful, man," Graham started, but the tray clattered to the floor. The cook's knees buckled and he collapsed face first next to the fryer. Everything stopped. Kara shouted, "Call 911," as Graham dropped beside him. "Hey, you with me?" The man's breathing was shallow, his skin pale. "His name's Vince," Kara said, her voice tight. "He's been here since 6 this morning. No break, no water. I told the manager, but she said we couldn't spare anyone." Graham froze. No break all day. He turned toward the office door, jaw tight. Paramedics arrived minutes later. Vince was conscious again, but barely speaking. They wheeled him out as Kara stood beside him, holding his phone and wallet. The manager finally stepped out, a tall woman with sharp nails and a blank expression. "What happened?" she asked flatly. "You tell me," Kara snapped. "He collapsed." "He hasn't had a break in over 8 hours. We're short-staffed. Everyone's gotta pull weight," the manager replied. Graham kept quiet, watching, listening. Kara shook her head. "You've had 2 people in the back office all day. They're reviewing inventory." "No, they're scrolling their phones." The manager narrowed her eyes. "You don't run this place, Kara." "No," Kara said, pulling off her headset. "But I'm not gonna watch someone drop dead so you can sit on your ass." The tension was sharp enough to cut. Graham turned away, heart pounding. His hands shook not from nerves but from rage. He'd built this place to be better than the fast food chains he used to work for, not like this. He walked back into the kitchen, picked up the tray, and started cleaning the mess. Kara stood beside him. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, just didn't expect this." She looked over. "You seem different. Most new hires don't care." Graham didn't answer. But inside, something was shifting. Tomorrow, he wasn't coming back as a trainee. He was coming back as the man who owned the building. Graham arrived the next morning at 6:45, this time in a crisp gray button-down and dark jeans. No apron, no cap, no disguise. He stepped through the same back door, but today the kitchen paused. Kara, hunched over the prep table with a clipboard, looked up first. Her eyebrows lifted, but she said nothing. The teen cashier from the day before stopped mid-sentence. A younger cook near the fryer blinked twice. The silence broke when the manager walked in from the office, holding a coffee and glancing at her phone. She didn't notice him until she nearly walked into him. "Excuse me," she started, then froze. "Can I help you?" "I'm Graham Ackley," he said evenly. "Owner of this company," her mouth parted slightly. "Mr. Ackley, I wasn't informed you'd be visiting today." "You weren't supposed to be," he said. "I was here yesterday, as Gabe." He watched her posture stiffen, fingers tightening around her cup. "You'll need to pack your things," he said. "What? You're done here," he said calmly. "You left your team unsupervised while you sat in an air-conditioned office all day. A man collapsed in your kitchen. That's not a misunderstanding. That's negligence." She opened her mouth, but no words came. Then she turned, walked into the office, and shut the door behind her. No one said anything. The only sound was the low hum of the refrigerator unit. Graham turned to Kara. "Can you get everyone together?" She looked unsure. "Now, yeah," he said. "I'm not here to put on a show. I just need everyone in the break room." The break room was small, barely enough for 8 people. The staff trickled in. Kara, the 2 teen cashiers, a grill cook wearing headphones around his neck, and an older woman who handled the drive-through window. Graham waited until they all found a seat or leaned against the wall. "First off," he began, "I owe you an apology, all of you." They watched him, guarded but curious. "I built this company off one simple idea: treat people right and they'll treat customers right. Somewhere along the line I stopped checking if that was still true." He paused, then said, "Yesterday I saw something that doesn't belong in any business, let alone mine." The cashier with the long braids crossed her arms. "Vince almost passed out. That what you mean?" Graham nodded. "Exactly. He's still in the hospital," she added. "They think it was heat stress. He's diabetic. No one ever asked." "I didn't know that," Graham said. "Thank you for telling me." The grill cook raised his hand halfway. "What happens now? You shutting us down?" "No," Graham said. "This restaurant's staying open, but the way it's been run, that ends today." A few people shifted in their seats. Kara folded her arms, watching him closely. "We'll have a temporary manager rotating in for the next few weeks while we hire someone full-time, someone from inside this company. No outsiders." The young cashier who'd spoken up yesterday raised a hand. "What about Kara? She runs everything anyway." Kara shook her head. "I don't want a title unless it means real changes." "It will," Graham said. "Starting with breaks, they'll be tracked, enforced. No exceptions." The older woman near the door spoke for the first time. "We've been understaffed for months. Manager kept saying hiring was frozen." Graham frowned. "It isn't, not even close. We've had open requisitions for 2 extra staff here since early May." Everyone looked at each other. "She said corporate blocked it," the grill cook muttered. "She lied," Graham said. "And she's gone." He glanced at Kara. "How bad has it really been?" Kara hesitated. "We've had people walk out mid-shift. One guy got screamed at for asking to leave early when his kid was sick. Some of us stay because we like each other, not because of the job." The room was quiet again. Graham nodded slowly. "I need to earn your trust back. That means fixing this without asking you to pretend it never happened." He stood. "I'll be around all day. I'm not going back to my office until this place runs the way it should." He walked out before anyone could respond. By mid-morning, the temporary manager arrived, an operations lead from another location named Sonia. She was sharp, calm under pressure, and immediately started reviewing schedules and talking to the team one-on-one. Graham stayed out of her way, instead focusing on the systems. The freezer inventory was a mess. Half the labels were faded, and some boxes weren't sealed properly. He noted everything and called the regional logistics coordinator. A full audit would begin tomorrow. Just before noon, he sat in the dining area with Kara and Sonia, reviewing the last 2 weeks of schedules. "These are illegal," Sonia said, pointing at one. "This person worked 10 days straight." Kara leaned over. "That's Vince." Graham didn't speak. He just picked up the schedule and folded it once. "Any chance you'll consider staying on?" Sonia asked Kara. "As assistant manager to start." Kara met her eyes. "If I can set the schedule and decide when people eat, yeah. Otherwise, no." "You'll set the schedule," Graham said. "And you'll have hiring input. You've earned it." Kara didn't smile, but she nodded. Later that afternoon, Graham walked to the hospital. He found Vince in a quiet room, a drip in his arm and a tablet on his lap. "Hey," Graham said gently. "I'm Graham." "From corporate?" Vince asked, voice hoarse. "No, I'm the owner." Vince raised an eyebrow. "I was the guy cutting onions next to you yesterday." Vince blinked. "Well, hell." Graham sat down. "You shouldn't have had to go through that. I'm sorry." Vince looked away. "Didn't think anyone cared." "I didn't know," Graham said, "but I do now." Vince nodded slowly. "You gonna fix it?" "I already started." They sat in silence for a moment. When Graham stood to leave, Vince said, "It's a good place. Wasn't always like that." "It won't be again," Graham said. Outside the hospital, the air smelled like cut grass and hot pavement. Graham stood still for a moment, phone in hand, letting the weight of the last 24 hours settle in. He didn't build this company to watch it turn into something he wouldn't work for. Now he was going to make sure no one else had to either. Graham arrived again before opening. This time he entered through the front. The lobby was quiet, the chairs still stacked. A staff member he hadn't met yet, a tall woman with short hair and a mop in hand, looked up, confused. "You the vendor?" she asked. "No, I'm Graham," he said. "Owner," she straightened. "Didn't think you'd come back again today." "I will be for a while," he said. "What's your name?" "Marla," she said. "I usually open, clean the lobby, stock the cups, fill the sauces." "Mind if I walk with you?" he asked. She nodded and turned back to her mop bucket. "Just don't stand where I'm about to mop." He followed her around the dining area as she moved methodically from one tile to the next. She was quiet but efficient, and her eyes scanned the floor constantly, checking for anything out of place. "Did you know Vince well?" Graham asked after a moment. "Not really," she said. "We had different shifts. I just know he didn't complain." "Did the old manager ever ask how long you were on your feet?" Marla paused mid-swipe. "She asked once. When I told her, she said to stop milking the clock." Graham exhaled slowly. "That won't happen again." Marla didn't respond. She just kept mopping. Inside the kitchen, Sonia was already reviewing prep logs with Kara. A few new staff had been pulled in from neighboring locations to help cover. Graham noticed the energy was different, quieter, more focused but still tense. No one was relaxed yet. A delivery truck backed into the loading dock around 7:30. The driver, a man with a clipboard and a limp, climbed down slowly and started unloading crates of frozen goods. Graham walked over to help, but the man waved him off. "I've got it." "You're limping," Graham noted. "Yeah, sprained my ankle last week, slipped on an oil stain at the last drop-off." "You report it." Manager said it was past closing. "No witnesses, just told me to be more careful." Graham's jaw tensed. "What's your name?" "Louis." "You're not making another delivery today. You're going to urgent care on the company's dime." Louis blinked. "You serious?" Graham pulled out his phone. "I'll have someone take your route. Go sit down inside. I'll get one of the team to grab you some water." Louis didn't move for a moment, then gave a small nod and limped toward the side door. Inside, Sonia looked up as Graham entered. "Delivery driver's hurt," he said. "Sprained ankle on another shift. Was told to shrug it off." "Who told him that?" "Same manager we just replaced." Sonia scribbled a note. "I'll report it to legal. We'll flag her entire history." Kara stepped closer. "If it happened on site, she should have filed an incident report." "She didn't," Graham said. "And I'm guessing it's not the only one." Sonia turned to the prep cook. "Can you pull the last 60 days of incident logs? I want to cross-check them with schedules." The prep cook nodded and walked off. Graham leaned on the counter. "I've seen enough to know this wasn't just bad leadership. It was a system that let people get ignored." Kara folded her arms. "You blame corporate?" "I blame myself," he said. "I scaled too fast, trusted the wrong people. I thought I could lead from a distance." She didn't respond. The day moved fast. Orders came in steady. The new support staff helped, but they were still short-handed. Kara stepped onto the line twice just to avoid delays. Graham bussed tables during the lunch rush, refilled condiments behind the counter, and fixed a jammed ice machine with a butter knife and a shoelace. By mid-afternoon, he stepped outside for air. The sky was slate gray, heavy with clouds. He was stretching his back when he heard raised voices from the alley beside the building. He followed the sound. 2 employees stood near the dumpster. One was a high schooler with a headset still around his neck. The other, a shift runner with gelled hair and a company polo, was pointing a finger in the kid's face. "I told you not to take your break until I said," the shift runner snapped. "You don't get to walk off just because you're tired." "I didn't walk off," the teen said. "I asked Kara and she said it was fine." "That's not how it works." Graham stepped forward. "Why don't you explain how it does work?" The shift runner turned, startled. "Graham." "I didn't see you there." "I know," Graham said. "What's your name?" "Eduardo, I'm the closing lead." "Not anymore." Eduardo's mouth opened, but Graham cut him off. "You just threatened a minor for following protocol. You don't speak to anyone like that on my team." "Get your things and leave." Eduardo's jaw clenched. "You serious?" "Dead serious," Graham said. "You can leave now or I call security." Eduardo didn't argue. He stormed back inside, mumbling under his breath. Graham turned to the teen. "You okay?" The kid gave a nervous laugh. "Thought I was about to get fired." "You followed instructions. You're fine." The teen nodded and walked slowly back toward the kitchen. Graham stayed in the alley for a minute longer. The rain hadn't started, but the air was heavy with it. Inside, Sonia was already updating the schedule. "Eduardo's gone," Graham said. "We'll need another closer." "I'll pull someone from the downtown store for a week," she said. "After that, we'll need to promote or hire." Kara glanced up from the register. "I'll cover tonight." "You've already worked too many hours," Sonia said. Kara met her eyes. "I'll survive, but tomorrow I want 2 new people on the floor, 1 for dishes, 1 for drive-through." "You'll have them," Graham said. "I just cleared the hiring freeze that wasn't actually a freeze." She nodded and turned back to the counter. That evening, Graham stayed to watch closing. The energy stayed steady. No shouting, no skipped breaks, still tight, still under strain but holding. After the last customer left, he helped mop the floor. "You don't have to do that," Marla said, walking past with a fresh rag. "Neither do you," he replied, wringing out the mop. Kara leaned against the back wall, arms crossed. "You gonna be here tomorrow?" "Yeah." "You planning to stay undercover again?" He shook his head. "No point." She studied him for a beat. "Then you better show up before the line gets long." "I will." She pushed off the wall. "Good." As the last lights turned off and the staff filed out, Graham stood alone in the kitchen. The tile beneath him was still damp. The air smelled faintly of cleaner and grease. This place was nowhere near perfect, but it was moving in the right direction. And this time, he wasn't stepping away. By the 3rd week, things had steadied slightly. Graham had made it a point to rotate through every role in the building at least once. He'd worked the register on a Friday night, cleaned grease traps on a Tuesday morning, and even spent one quiet afternoon in the drive-through window just to understand the rhythm. But he didn't hover. Instead, he showed up when necessary and stepped back when the team found their footing. The biggest change came not from the new policies, but from the people now allowed to do their jobs fully. Kara had taken the assistant manager role, but she didn't change her tone or pace. She kept wearing the same faded sneakers, stayed half an hour past close most nights, and still corrected sloppy prep without raising her voice. When she spoke, people listened not out of obligation but because she'd earned it. On a rainy Thursday morning, Graham sat at a corner booth reviewing the latest labor logs. The numbers weren't pretty. Overtime was still high, and they were running thin during mid-shift transitions, especially around school dismissal hours. But for the first time, no one had clocked more than 6 hours without a break in over 10 days. A tray landed on the table in front of him. Chicken sandwich, extra pickles, no bun. Kara slid into the seat across from him. "You looked like you forgot to eat," she said. "I did," he admitted. "Thanks." She rested her arms on the table. "We're still losing people. 2 part-timers quit this week." "I know," he said. "I read their exit forms. They didn't fill them out." Graham looked up. "They just told me. One's starting at a grocery store, the other got hired at a warehouse." "Higher pay, steadier hours." He nodded slowly. "You think we're asking too much?" I think we're asking the right amount, she said, but we're paying like it's still last year. The sandwich sat untouched. They're not wrong, Graham said. We've been behind. I'll fix it. Wage bumps, he nodded. Across the board, starting pay goes up next month, retroactive for everyone on staff now. Kara leaned back. That'll help. From across the room, Sonia waved him over. He stood, carrying the tray with him, and joined her near the front counter. There's someone here asking to speak to a manager, she said. Didn't want to give a name. A man stood near the door. Mid-50s, cords on his neck taut, wearing a pressed shirt and a tight jaw. His daughter stood beside him, maybe 16, arms crossed, looking anywhere but at him. Graham walked up. I'm Graham, he said. Can I help you? The man looked him over. You're in charge? Yes, my daughter applied here 2 weeks ago, never got a call. All right, Graham said. Let's check. He turned to Sonia, who already had the applicant tablet in hand. She tapped a few times and angled it toward him. She got marked as rejected, she said quietly. Application was flagged. Graham frowned. Why? Tag says appearance not suitable for front-facing role. He stared at the screen, then turned back to the man and his daughter. I'm sorry, he said. That's not acceptable. The father's eyes narrowed. So what are you going to do about it? Graham looked at the girl. Would you still want to work here? She hesitated, then shrugged. If it's not like before. It's not, he said. Sonia set up an interview. If she qualifies, we onboard her immediately. Sonia nodded and stepped aside with the girl. Graham turned to the man. I understand why you're upset. The man exhaled slowly. I just want her treated right, that's all. She will be, Graham said. And I'll find out who flagged her application. By late afternoon, he had his answer. One of the shift supervisors, a recent hire from another franchise, had overridden Sonia's shortlist. When questioned, he claimed he wanted a more polished front counter. Graham asked one question. What exactly does polished mean to you? The man stammered, tried to deflect, mentioned company image. Graham cut him off. You made a decision based on how a teenager looked. That's discrimination. You're done here. The man didn't argue. He signed his termination form and walked out without a word. That evening, Graham called a meeting. Everyone gathered in the dining area, staff from all shifts, including newer hires and a few who had transferred in recently to help stabilize the schedule. Graham stood at the front, behind the counter. The kitchen was closed, lights dimmed except for the overheads. I want to say something before we move forward, he began. We've had turnover, staffing gaps, and a culture that wasn't just broken, it was ignored. People watched him quiet. I've fired 3 people in the last 2 weeks. Not for mistakes, but for choices. Choices that put others at risk, disrespected team members, or made people feel small. He paused. From here forward, this place runs on one rule: dignity. That applies to customers, to coworkers, to everyone who walks through that door. He let the words hang. You'll be supported, you'll be heard. And if you're ever treated unfairly, you don't have to wait for someone to notice. You come to me, direct. He stepped back. Now I'll shut up and you can speak. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then Marla, who rarely said more than 10 words in a shift, raised her hand. We need better mats in the dish area, she said. Slipped twice this week. Done, Graham said. The teen cashier who'd been yelled at in the alley raised his hand. Can we rotate more during rush? I've been on register 5 days straight. Good point, Sonia said. We'll revise the rotation grid. More hands went up, not complaint solutions, requests, ideas. The meeting lasted less than 20 minutes, but it marked something that hadn't existed before: shared ownership. After the room cleared, Kara approached again. I didn't think you'd stick. I didn't think I'd have to, Graham said. She nodded once. You'll still check in, every week. She looked around the quiet restaurant. It's better, still tight, but better. It'll keep getting better, he said. They stood in silence for a beat. By the way, Graham added, Vince called. He's getting out of rehab next week. Wants to come back part-time. Kara smiled, not wide, not dramatic, just enough. I'll make sure we've got space on the schedule, she said. Graham walked out to his car under a clear evening sky. For the first time in weeks, the air felt clean. The building behind him wasn't perfect. But it was honest now, accountable, and that mattered more than any profit he'd made this year.